What a week. So, yeah, this week the Supreme Court had a few things to say. One of the things that stood out for me is that they wrote that the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions. A lot of things are not deeply rooted in American history and traditions, like social media and algorithms and the harm they do. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is fighting really hard for the freedom of speech via Twitter because priorities. But I digress. We are here to talk about this week's social media news, digital marketing news, and all that other stuff that seems really stupid right now at this point in history, but we're going to talk about it anyway. This week, TikTok released a very, very, very pretty announcement. I mean, it's so beautifully written. I will put it in the newsletter that I will issue after this, just so that you can see all the pretty words that they're using. They announced that they're launching Pulse, a new advertising solution that has built-in creator revenue. So if you have over 100,000 followers on TikTok and you're in the top 4% of all videos on TikTok, you may get this opportunity to run contextual ads in partnership with brands and get 50% of the revenue. That's pretty significant. Now, a lot of social networks have this top tier of advertising solution, but not all of them share revenue with creators. What's really important about this news is that, because you may not care about TikTok and you may not want to run ads there, but what's really important about this news is that TikTok is signaling a really big shift in the expectations of creators. TikTok is basically acknowledging that creators put a lot of work in creativity, and you should read this announcement because it uses very pretty words. They put a lot of work into building these networks, into providing entertainment for their users, for their followers, and they should be compensated for it. I have an employee who is part of the influencer community, and she reminded me this morning that there's continued conversations in private groups where influencers are sharing how they feel about the fact that brands are still just offering them products in exchange for content. I've been talking about this a lot, that the future of influencer marketing is not going to be just an exchange of product for content. These creators are incredibly talented at what they do. And they've worked hard to build their audiences, and as brands, we're not entitled to their audiences. So offering them compensation is only fair. Now, about this TikTok announcement, and another thing that I love to do when I read these announcements from Meta, from Instagram, from TikTok, I pay attention to the words they use or what they seem to highlight in the language that they use. It really tells us a lot about, in many cases, their values, but also it tells us a lot about, as creators, as brands, what content to put out there to fit in or rise to the top on these social networks. And so in this announcement from TikTok, they use the word creator 14 times, community 12 times, content 9 times, it's expected, moments 7 times, it's terms that they use for what creators do on the platform, engagement 6 times, but I particularly want to call out the fact that they mention culture 6 times. In other words, over and over again, they signal that there's cultures and universes being created on the platform, and that for a brand to be welcomed on the platform or to be welcomed in these cultures, they need to play along. They're signaling, just as Twitter announced last year as part of one of the reports, that the users are in charge and brands have to play along with them, and that the users expect to be a part of the conversation, a part of what brands do. They, on these social networks as brands, We are no longer just a participant because we pay to be there through our advertising. We are expected to be a part of the trends, of the culture that's being created there. So take that into account when you create your content. We've always talked about finding that intersection between who you are as a brand and what your people want. That what people want is becoming a bigger part of that equation, and we may have to adjust even how we see ourselves as part of the world to fit into these communities that are absolutely in the control of creators. Moving on, let's talk about something that Facebook did that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about the fact that Facebook sunset podcasts. I ran a little poll, and 59% of the people didn't even know what Facebook Podcasts was. And another 41% said that they couldn't care less. So Facebook launched podcasts about a year ago, and they're getting rid of it, and nobody cares. Nobody cares that they did it. Nobody cares that they're not going to do it anymore. Some of the comments on this poll said that I'm barely on Facebook, and I get my information from my podcasts on Spotify or other places. I have a habit built. For Facebook to think that they could attract audiences by launching podcasts, I don't know what the word for that is. Maybe stupid. What were you thinking, Facebook? Moving on from Facebook to Pinterest. Pinterest has been doing things quietly, and they just launched a TV studio app for creators to do live streams and sell products. Pinterest has been very interesting. It's not the first quiet announcement they've made. They've been quietly and slowly growing. This week, they announced their earnings for Q1. They earned 10 cents a share on sales that rose 19% year over year to 575 million, and their shares rose by 8% just yesterday. Pinterest is making moves. And while Facebook and TikTok and Instagram are not paying attention, they are growing their revenues. Another bit of news in the social media world comes from TikTok. They launched a report, and a lot of these reports that we'll look at that come from these social networks are absolutely meant to serve them. They're absolutely meant to get brands and people to think that they're wonderful and go to them. So this Twitter report, take it with a grain of salt. They did some surveys in 2021, September of 2021, and one of the results of these surveys is that 76% of people say that they agree with the statement, conversations about products on Twitter result in my purchasing a product. So 76% of people who answered this survey said that they buy products because of conversations on Twitter. Two important things there. One is conversations. They're not saying they're buying products because they saw a post from a brand. They buy products because they have conversations with other people on the platform, and brands may participate. And then the second thing to keep in mind there is that these are Twitter users. They're already Twitter users. They already spend time on the platform. So of course they're influenced by what happens on the platform. A lot of brands ask, should I be on Twitter? Should I jump on Twitter? I don't know. Where are your audiences? This report from Twitter also talks about a 10% increase in retail conversion volume by men. We've always known that Twitter has captured a larger share of the male population. More men spend time on Twitter than women. So that totally makes sense. So are your audiences there? And are you willing to invest the time to participate in conversations? The strategy on Twitter should be monitor, measure, converse. Keep those three in mind. Monitor, measure, converse. Nobody on Twitter really cares about your posts unless you're a mega company. They're not even going to find them. The key there is participation. Now, Instagram officially announced the full screen feed. Full screen. Yes, this week is making me like I want to scream. So there, but Instagram announced the full screen feature. They're testing it. They haven't rolled it out to everybody. But I showed a leaked preview of this a while back, and now it's official. So Adam Mosseri announced it yesterday, I believe, on Instagram, on Twitter, and said it's a new immersive viewing experience in the main home feed. So whether you're going to use images or whether you're going to use videos, it's going to be fully displayed in your feed. But he also stressed the shift to 9:16, so tall videos, not the 9:16 preview. So start thinking about how you're going to change your visual strategy for Instagram to have tall images, tall videos, because that's the direction Instagram is going to be moving on. Now, he said we're testing it, send him his feedback. So in the newsletter, I would post the link to his Twitter post, and you can drop in a comment because he wants to hear from you. So if you have any opinions about this, you can drop them in the comments here. I will not pass them along to him. But if you want to share those with the head of Instagram himself, go to that tweet in the newsletter and drop in your opinions. From LinkedIn just launched a 17 pages for what they are calling how to run. I gotta laugh. I mean, this whole week, social networks have made these announcements using this amazing language. And LinkedIn says they want you to run legendary leads ads campaigns. So if you want to be legendary, I will put a link in the newsletter to the 17-page report. I hope you'll be able to make time to read it. That's the news of the week, but I also have for you a question of the week. I am a program leader, so an instructor, sort of, at the Kellogg Professional Certificate in Digital Marketing, and I got a very interesting question from a student this week. Our question was, what is the next level after personalization? So as part of the program this past week, a couple of weeks, we've talked a lot about the importance of personalization. And so fair question. So personalization is great. What's the next thing that I should look at? Well, that's individualization. And the way I explain individualization does require that you really get your data system straight and that you collect first-party information. A lot of companies haven't even started properly collecting email addresses. So a lot of companies have a long ways to go. They first need to move to personalization, to the ability to do that properly, and then we can talk about individualization. B2B companies are a little bit better about that because it's part of the sales culture to build one-on-one relationships. But here's an example of individualization. There's a pet food store here in Chicago, owned by this very cute lady. She's had this business for dozens of years, I think. And she's been in this business for a long time. She's talked to a lot of people. I went in there and I said, my cat has nose cancer. She can't smell very well. I need something really smelly. And she goes like, no problem. Here, try this. And have you looked at the CBD thing? She put the information in her system. So she asked for my information and she wrote my cat's name, the details that she has, it's cancer, everything. And how do I know? Because next time I went there, I said, I was here about my cat. And she goes like, oh yeah, how's she feeling? Have you tried that CBD oil? That's individualization. She connected with me on a very personal level. She kept track of the information because she talks to a lot of people. She's not going to remember everything. And so the answer to that question is the next level after personalization is individualization, but that will require that you actually pay attention to your customers, find ways to get their permission to record first-party data. It's also another challenge for individualization is creating memorization systems. So if you're retail and you have hundreds of tens of thousands of customers, you need to create memorization systems. And there's a lot of development in the AI space that's trying to replicate the memory of an individual on a systemic level. So most brands are not ready for individualization. It's a lot easier for mom and pop stores, but even mom and pop stores don't always ask for that information or provide incentives for me to willingly give that to them. So that's the question and answer of the week. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will put links to sources for everything I talked about today in the newsletter that I will publish, which is basically just the show notes. I prepare my notes for this, and I've decided to publish them so that I can show the people where I got my information. So look out for that, or subscribe. You can go to my profile and you will see the newsletter with a subscribe button right there. That's it for this week. I hope to see you back here next time.